Okay, this is part 3 of my podcast for Kate and Leopold. Okay, so anyway, the next day anyway, Kate of course goes back to work and everyone's talking about the margarine ad, the farmer's bounty ad, and Kate says to her boss and her colleagues that the women thought that Leopold was a hunk and a charmer. And of course, JJ gets kind of annoyed by this because he got pissed off with what Leopold said about him that previous night. And of course, the next scene anyway, we see Stuart, and he of course is been assigned to a mental institution because no one believes him still that he brought his great great grandfather to the 21st century. So of course Leopold anyway is getting ready for the big main event, the dinner rooftop scene, and he of course helps Charlie win Patrice as well by, letting him buy flowers and everything, while Leopold is organising some violinists they actually meet. How he gets money though, I may never know because it never actually clarifies how Leopold gets money since he's actually broke as fuck. Maybe he actually borrowed money from Stuart because Stuart had some money left around. Who knows? I'm just gonna say he left money around just for keepsake, just for emergencies only. And of course, Leopold knows how to use a credit card or something. Yeah, who knows? So anyway, Charlie of course goes on date with Patrice, and Leopold of course decides to go on a date with Kate. So now the big night of course comes, and Leopold and Kate, they're talking away with one another, and she says, "Oh, this is actually really, really well done. Like the way he actually done the place in the rooftop scene with candles lit everywhere and romantic music and lovely dinner." And here's me going, "Oh my god." And of course, Kate admits to Leopold that she's not good with men, and he says to her, "Oh, maybe you haven't found the right one." And she's like, "Yeah, maybe unless he's like Santa Claus been coming out of a chimney." And I actually sort of relate to that scene because it is actually hard to find a guy in real life, to be honest with you, because men nowadays are just arrogant and they're like pigs and they're just too boastful and they just play mind tricks on you. But anyway, of course, Kate, of course, decides to sort of leave, and Leopold is like, "What are you doing?" She's like, "Oh yeah, I'm just gonna clean up," and he asks her to dance with him. And this is when the movie gets romantic because he says something to her. They share their first kiss. The next scene, anyway, Leopold is finally able to do toast properly, and he makes her strawberry mascarpone cheese, and he tells her he actually loves Kate now. And he says to Kate, "Oh, what are we going to do today?" And Kate's like, "I don't know how we're going to do it today." And of course, decide to tour New York, basically. So Leopold finds his old house, and he, of course, shows Kate where he lived originally, well, where his uncle's from. And he actually opens up this skirting board, and there's this box, and there's a ring inside, like a beautiful ring. It's like a ruby ring. And he says, "Oh yeah, this was my mother's ring." And Kate's like, "Oh yeah, it's so beautiful." And she admits to him then during the Brooklyn Bridge, well, outside the Brooklyn Bridge, that she wanted to travel but she couldn't, and she's been in New York for 10 years. And Leopold's like, "You have never left New York." And she's like, "Nope, never left New York in my life." And then she says to him, "Do you miss where you're from?" And he's like, "Yeah, sort of miss where I'm from." And then they share another kiss. And then they have like Breakfast at Tiffany's, the music of Breakfast at Tiffany's playing, which I thought was very, very clever. And Kate says to Leopold, "Oh, hey, have you seen Breakfast at Tiffany's?" And he's like, "No, haven't seen it." She's like, "You haven't seen Breakfast at Tiffany's?" And he's like, "Nope, never seen it in my entire life." And she explains to him there's this man who listens to the soundtrack every night before he goes to sleep. And of course, Kate, of course, gets very tired. And she's like, "Oh, I want more of this, I want more 1876. And he's like, "Oh yeah, Kate, we do have, this is Sunday, we can have more." And she's like, "Yeah, well, tomorrow's the day of work, so it gets poisoned." Meaning that she actually hates her job to a T. So then Leopold becomes sort of brave and he decides to ask her to marry him. But she, of course, falls asleep, and he notices that she's asleep on his chest, and he's like, "Oh yeah, time to go to bed." So he lifts her up anyway into her room, like a real Prince Charming, by the way, because this man is a real Prince Charming, I'm not gonna lie. So anyway, Kate is like, "Oh yeah, don't go upstairs, just stay with me." And of course the two of them sleep together, and he literally says to her, softly, I love you, Kate McKay. And here was me going, oh, this is so sweet. And then the big day arrives with the farmer's bounty ad, and Leopold takes a sample of it, and he literally thinks it's disgusting. He's like, what the actual fuck? I can't believe this butter, you're actually promoting this butter, and you're literally enjoying this. And of course, Kate and Leopold have an argument, and then she's like, oh yeah, this is over, whatever this was, it's over. And I was like, wow, she's back to being a bitch again. But the reason why she was a bitch the entire time was because she hated her job in marketing, and she just had enough of it, and that's why she just lost her cool with Leopold. And then Stuart, of course, somehow manages to escape the asylum, because there's this nurse, and she says, oh yeah, I believe you. And of course he does a runner, he escapes. And then he says to Leopold then, oh yeah, I know things have happened in the past, I know things happened, but you have to go back. So of course he decides to go back to 1876, which is a bit of a bummer. And of course Kate, then gets told that day that she got promoted as the vice president for CRG, Cam Jansen's group. And of course she doesn't realise that Leopold is gone, and Charlie says to Stuart, Charlie says to Stuart, oh yeah, where's Leo? And he's like, he's gone home. And then we discover something really, really weird. So Charlie, of course, is there looking at the photos, and he's like, oh shit, and discovers that Kate was meant to go back with Leopold in 1876. Yeah, it's bizarre. I know, it's totally bizarre, but that's how the twist came to be. So of course Kate is this big promotion, like I said, for her vice president role for CRG. And Stuart, of course, and Charlie, they gate crash the event, and they say to Kate, oh yeah, you have to go jump off a Brooklyn Bridge in less than 23 minutes or you'll never see Leopold ever again. She's like, yeah, I don't believe for a second that he is actually who he says he was. But then she sees the photos and she's like, oh my god, my ex-boyfriend was right the entire time. And what does she do? She's like, screw this job in marketing, I'm going after Hugh Jackman in 1876 and be with him in the end. So of course they're rushing anyway to get the portal, for Kate to get the portal. And she of course climbs this like girder apparently, and she says to Stuart, you want me to cross what now? You want me to cross the girder? And she's like, yeah, I can't cross the girder. And then of course Stuart's like, you love Leopold, right? And she's like, yeah, I do. And then she decides to cross the girder, and she of course says to Charlie, I love you forever. And then she falls into the portal back into 1876. And then there's this big do again with Leopold, and he's like, oh yeah, I have to my Uncle Millard, and he thanks Uncle Millard for whatever, for the do for the bridal waltz, which is about to happen right now, right this instant. So then he Leopold anyway is there, and he's just about to announce Miss Tree of Connecticut, aka Kirsten Shaw, who is in the beginning of the film. And then who comes in just in time but Kate McKay? And of course Kate McKay is now chosen as Leopold's wife, and the two live happy ever after. Until we discover outside of the movie that Leopold actually died in 1886, and now she's stuck in that time frame waiting for the portal to open again. So yeah, that's pretty much the movie in a nutshell. So stick around for my pros and cons and the final verdict of this movie, so stick around.